I was a single mom when my husband Ryan and I met. And when we got married, he jumped into the role of parent. He not only just married me, but my kids came with me as part and package for the deal. Ryan was 27 when we got married. And so for him to be 27 years old, learning how to parent a 4 and an 8-year-old was a really big deal. We had this thing on Sunday mornings where I would leave early and go to church, and then he would get the kids ready and bring them to church in the morning. There was one Sunday where I was up leading the congregation, and I kept looking around and wondering where they were. It was really early in our marriage. And I was like, where on earth is Ryan and the kids? And I'm starting to get a little bit worried. And it was about 15 minutes into the worship service when they walk in and they go and they sit in the second pew, kind of right behind where the ministry leaders were sitting. And I looked over there and they were a mess. Chase was coming in with like kind of half shorts and like half tucked in, half tucked out, and his hair was all sticking up. But Mackenzie was such a mess. I looked over at what she was wearing from my place in front of the church, and she was wearing, first of all, it was summer, and she was wearing a long sleeve velvet dress. She had tights on that had holes all over them. And then on her feet were these like gross, grungy Powerpuff Girl flip-flops with her tights. Flip-flops that we had bought at a garage sale that I had explicitly told her that she was not allowed to wear to school. And here she was walking into church with it. And her hair was just crazy. Like nobody had even taken a brush to it. And after worship, I went over to Ryan and I looked at him and he looked at me like he'd been hit by a truck. And he looked at me and he said, it was a rough morning. And all I could say to Ryan was, Ryan, I work here. What would people think? What would people think when they see the kids showing up like this? Do you ever wonder that? What would people think? I mean, I worried and obsessed in my 20s about what people were going to think about me and my family. And when I looked at my girl in her velvet dress and her Powerpuff Girl flip-flops, we still talk about this to this day. That was only the thing that I could think about. I could not look at my daughter and I thought, what are people going to think? What are people going to think if their church employee can't have their kids to church on time and dressed properly? What are people going to think? If you've ever parented kids or been a kid, you know that we all have that conversation in about 4th or 5th grade when they start moving through puberty. We all have this conversation with our kids. We start to tell them like, okay, now it's time for you to start showering every day and wear deodorant because you smell bad. And what do we all say to our kids? We say, well, we don't want you to be the smelly kid in class. Every one of us says that, right? Because why don't we want them to be the smelly kid in class? Is because we worry, what would people think? We don't want people to judge them for being the smelly kid in class, and so we demand that they shower and wear deodorant, and Lord knows that that only helps for just a small amount of time for those 4th and 5th graders anyway. We spend so much time worrying about what other people would think in our lives, so much time perfecting and proving ourselves so that other people will think highly of us, probably more highly of us than we actually think of ourselves. What would people think? So instead of coming out authentic, we put on a smile and we look around and we keep our tears back. We try to pretend like we're not crying or panicking on the inside. We try and make our best foot forward and try and look like everything is all taken care of and happy and wonderful in our little lifeland, like we're awesome. But what ends up happening is that we end up putting a wall between us and other people. This wall and this barrier to the actual kind of life that we all really want. We all really want, actually, to be accepted and known and seen for who we are, despite our messiness and our Powerpuff Girl flip-flops, despite what's going on in our families or going on inside of our heads. We want to be able to show up just as ourselves, wholly ourselves, show up messy and still be loved. So when we get stuck in the loop of what would people think, what ends up happening is that we end up spending a lot of energy, we start hustling, and we become defensive because we spend a lot of time trying to impress other people because deep down, if we're really honest, we're insecure. We don't feel good about who we are, and so if we can impress you, then maybe you'll feel better about who I am than who I actually think I am. I had a good friend in Iowa who was a renowned, successful osteopathic surgeon, and He had 5 kids, but they were all close in age to each other. They lived in this giant, beautiful house, and he wore nice suits all the time. And his kids were always dressed in these brand name clothes, and they drove really, really fancy cars. And I was honestly kind of really intimidated by his level of success. Until one day I was holding a meeting at the church, and he showed up really late with 2 of his kids, and all 3 of them were completely disheveled. And after the meeting, he came up to me, and it was a weird way for me to see him because, like I said, he's a super successful surgeon. And he came up to me and he says to me something that was so honest that changed our relationship. He said, "Angie," he goes, "oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that we were so late." He said, "I have too many children." And it made me laugh. But what it did more is that it opened up an honest dialogue and a real connection between the 2 of us. We just talked about the mess of what it meant to have 4 or 5 children, about how hard that was. And that relationship was changed because there was no pretense or pretending in it. And here's the irony, is that that is what people really think. When we quit caring about impressing them and we care more about being real with other people, that's when we actually find the connection with others that we're really, really craving, the connection with others that we're really, really looking for. When we let go of our insecurities, then that's when we actually find security. Now, here's the truth. Whether you're wearing Powerpuff Girl flip-flops today or if you're wearing fancy shoes, the truth is that the God of the universe already thinks that you're pretty incredible. In fact, God delights in you. It says that specifically in Zephaniah. It says, "The Lord your God will take great delight with you. He will renew you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing." When my kids were little, I used to tuck them in the bed and I would sing this song. You know it. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." And when God looks at you, God says that to you too. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. Why are you worried about what they think? Because all I see in you is perfect. My sunshine. Have a great day.